Have you ever asked yourself why, despite all efforts for peace, the world always seems to be on the brink of a new conflict? Why politicians talk about peace but military budgets soar every year, surpassing spending on education, healthcare, and infrastructure combined? Are humans inherently warmongering? Or is there a darker reason, one hidden from public view, one only whispered in the corridors of power? What if I told you that war is not a political tragedy, but a carefully calculated business model? This is the hidden truth that no one in the establishment wants you to understand. War is the ultimate money machine. It is not about ideology, it is not about patriotism, and it is certainly not about freedom. It is about debt. It is a zero-sum game designed by a small group of international banks and defense contractors who reap enormous profits from chaos, destruction, and the blood of others. For them, peace is an opportunity cost. Peace is not profitable. Permanent conflict is the goal. They have created a symbiotic system, a perfect closed loop, where banks finance wars and wars enrich the banks. And the victims? It is all of us, the taxpayers, the soldiers, and the civilians caught in the crossfire. To understand this machine, we must go back in history, but not the history in textbooks about kings and battles. We must look at the accounting ledgers. For centuries, war was limited by one critical factor: real money. A king could only wage war if he had enough gold and silver in his treasury to pay mercenaries and buy weapons. If the money ran out, the war stopped. This created a natural discipline for conflict. But then everything changed. The birth of central banking completely changed the nature of war. Let us take the most classic example, the one that set the precedent for everything: the Rothschild family and the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. The story is told that Nathan Rothschild, the head of the London branch, used his superior intelligence network to know the outcome of the battle before anyone else. Wellington had won, Napoleon had lost. But instead of reporting the good news, Rothschild sold British government bonds, or consols, on the London Exchange, leading everyone to believe that England had lost. The market crashed. Bond prices plummeted to almost zero. As everyone was panic selling their assets, Rothschild's agents secretly bought up the entire market for pennies on the dollar. The next day, the official news of Wellington's victory was announced. Bond prices not only recovered, they soared. Nathan Rothschild made a colossal fortune in a single day. But this is not the most important part of the story. The important part is that the Rothschild family had funded both sides of the war. They loaned money to the British to fund Wellington's army, and they also loaned money to Napoleon. They had understood a simple but profound truth. When you lend money to two people fighting each other, you do not care who wins. You only care that they pay their debt with interest. War is the best collateral for loans because it is guaranteed by the very survival of the nation. A nation will do anything, tax everything, wring its people dry to pay its war debt. This is the model that has been replicated. The American Civil War. European and New York bankers funded both the Union and the Confederacy, profiting from the nation's division. President Abraham Lincoln tried to escape their grip. He needed money to finance the war, but the bankers demanded exorbitant interest rates from 24 to 36%. Lincoln refused. Instead, he did something radical. He had Congress pass the Legal Tender Act of 1862, allowing the United States government to issue its own currency, the greenbacks. This was debt-free money, issued directly by the government, not borrowed from a private central bank. This system saved the Union and funded the victory, but it was a direct threat to the bankers' business model. An article in the London Times at the time wrote ominously that if this financial policy, originating in the North American Republic, should become fixed, then that government will furnish its own money without cost. It will pay off its debts and be without debt. It will have all the money necessary to carry on its commerce. It will become prosperous beyond precedent in the history of the civilized world. That government must be destroyed, or it will destroy every monarchy on the globe. Lincoln was assassinated shortly after the war ended, and the greenback system was eventually eliminated. The banks regained control. The final turning point, the coup de grace that completed this model, took place in the 20th century. First was the creation of the Federal Reserve, or Fed, in 1913, a private central bank given the monopoly on creating America's money as debt. Just 1 year later, World War I broke out. How could the European nations sustain such a brutal war of attrition for 4 years? The answer is debt. They borrowed on a massive scale from international bankers, primarily the Wall Street banks associated with the Fed. J.P. Morgan, one of the Fed's creators, became the exclusive purchasing agent for Britain and France, arranging loans worth billions of dollars. When it looked like the Allies might lose and Morgan's loans were at risk of default, pressure was created for the United States to enter the war, to make the world safe for democracy, or, more accurately, to protect Wall Street's loans. World War II pushed this model even further, turning the United States into the arsenal of democracy and creating an unprecedented military-industrial boom. But the moment the permanent war machine was truly, fully activated was not a battle. It was 2 events that happened in peacetime. The first was President Dwight D. Eisenhower's farewell address in 1961. In it, he, a 5-star general who had commanded the D-Day invasion, gave a chilling warning to the nation. He warned of a new danger, the military-industrial complex, or MIC. He said, "In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist." He saw the Pentagon become the largest customer and corporations like General Dynamics, Boeing, and Lockheed become the exclusive suppliers. He saw generals retire and immediately join the boards of the very companies they had just awarded contracts to. He knew that this machine had a momentum of its own. To justify its existence and profits, it had to constantly find or create threats. Peace would mean mass layoffs, factory closures, and falling stock prices. His warning was ignored. The second, and perhaps even more significant event, was on August 15, 1971. President Richard Nixon announced that the United States would unilaterally close the gold window, ending the conversion of dollars to gold. This was the end of the Bretton Woods system. Why was this so important for war? Because until then, the United in America only cost $500,000. They spent $486 million on transport planes that the Afghan army could not even fly or maintain, and which were eventually sold for scrap. They lost billions of dollars in cash flown in on pallets. Lost? No, it was not lost. It was transferred. It was laundered through a system designed to be unauditable. The Pentagon has failed every single audit it has ever attempted. They cannot account for trillions of dollars in assets and spending. This is not incompetence. This is design. You cannot prosecute theft if no one can follow the books. During those 20 years, the CEOs of the top 5 defense contractors pocketed $287 million in salary. Their stock prices soared. The Wall Street banks collected fees for managing all the new debt issued to fund this endless war. And when it was time to leave, that chaotic withdrawal was not a mistake. It was a final business opportunity. They left behind tens of billions of dollars worth of weapons, vehicles, and equipment. Why? Because now the Pentagon will have to replace it all. The new orders were being signed before the last plane left Kabul. It was an economic stimulus package for the MIC. And now, look at the new model, Ukraine. This is the next evolution of the machine. It is the perfect proxy war. It is even better than Afghanistan because it requires no American boots on the ground. This means no body bags coming home, no Gold Star mothers protesting, no public war fatigue. It is a clean, sanitized war for the Americans watching it on TV. Instead, it is a simple model. The American taxpayer, through Fed debt, gives money to the United States government, which then gives money to Raytheon and Lockheed to build missiles, which are then sent to Ukraine to fight Russia. Raytheon gets paid. Lockheed gets paid. The politicians look strong, and the Ukrainians. They supply the blood. It is a brilliant arrangement for everyone in the loop. Every few weeks, a new multi-billion-dollar aid package is passed. That is not cash being sent to Kiev. It is cash being sent directly to weapons factories in Alabama, Ohio, and Arizona. They are replenishing U.S. stockpiles, but in reality, they are cycling your tax dollars into corporate profits, all under the guise of protecting democracy. And the banks, they are positioning for the grand prize. No matter how the war ends, Ukraine will be destroyed. It will need hundreds of billions of dollars to rebuild. Who will lend them that money? BlackRock, JP Morgan, the IMF, the World Bank. They are already holding Rebuild Ukraine conferences, drawing up the blueprints to buy up Ukraine's state assets, farmland, and energy grid. They finance the destruction, and then they finance the reconstruction, profiting on both ends while gaining control of the real assets of a sovereign nation. So what happens next? Is there a limit to this machine? Yes. Trust. This entire debt-based fiat system only works as long as people believe in the value of the dollar. But after decades of reckless printing, funding endless wars, and exporting inflation to the world, that trust is breaking. Nations like China, Russia, and the other BRICS countries are actively seeking an exit from the petrodollar system. They are trading in their own currencies. They are buying gold at record rates. They know the American debt empire is in its final stages. And this is the real danger. A collapsing empire, especially a financial one, never goes quietly. It will do anything to maintain control. When its soft economic power fails, it will revert to the only thing it has left, its hard military power. Do you think the rising tensions with China and Russia are accidental? They are the inevitable reaction of a system that refuses to give up power. But there is one final tool of control, one they are preparing right in front of us. Central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. They will introduce it to you after the next great financial crisis, one they themselves will create. They will say the old system was broken, that we need the safety, stability, and efficiency of a digital dollar. But make no mistake, a CBDC is not money. It is a control system. It is programmable money. It allows the central banks, the same people who funded every war, to have absolute control over your every transaction. They can decide what you can buy, where you can buy it. They can tax you in real time. They can turn off your money if you do not comply, if you question the next war, if you say the wrong thing on social media. It is the fusion of central bank power with the surveillance apparatus of a totalitarian state. It is the final loop. A world where you cannot refuse to fund the war machine, because your very money will be programmed to obey. We are standing at a crossroads. The debt war machine has ruled for over a century, enriching a few at the cost of millions of lives and the freedom of us all. They rely on us being too scared, too distracted, and too divided to see the strings. They think we will accept their digital version of financial slavery without a fight. In the end, history is not something that happens to us. It is something made by conscious decisions, and the biggest decision of all time is right in front of us. Trust is not just an emotion. In the world of finance, it is the final collateral, and once it is gone, the entire paper castle collapses.